Okay, so we've created a lot of different artboards here and a zillion different layers if we were to open up all those artboards. So how do we get our favorite two different variations out so that our client could see them easily via email, or we can put them on our blog? Well, before I show you that, let me just kind of give you a reminder that not only can you do what I'm about to show you, but if we fly any particular layer open, we can go back to what we learned under Adobe Generator and generate any one or more of these layers out. We can also, without even going into the generator, you could simply just click on a layer and then right click, and you can do a quick export as a PNG or go export as, which will bring you into this menu, which is actually what we're getting at for doing the whole entire artboard. And just so you can see that one more time with the whole entire artboard, if I just right click on an artboard and go export as, I get an option of exporting the artboard. And notice here you have format choices. So if you wanted to you have the option of all the different styles that are web friendly here. Before we get to exactly what you need at this moment, let me just show you for future use two other important options that are available in here. And instead of under layer and export, these are under file and export. And you can see that you have a choice of artboards to files, which will give you the option to create a Photoshop document of just this one artboard. So that could be pretty handy, especially if you feel like you're being overwhelmed with the number of layers that you have here. And you can also export an artboard to a PDF. So that could be very friendly for sharing with a client. What we're after is getting out our 6 artboards here that we want to share. So we could do them one at a time, which probably not the most efficient thing to do. We could also, just to help us know which ones that we are going to actually use, is go through the eyeballs here and toggle off the ones that we don't want, because what we ultimately want to get here is a selection of just the 4 in some people's cases, but in our case, since we want to show 2 states of the portfolio, we're going to end up with a total of 6 that we're going to output here. Okay, and then even if I command minus back out, I can see that I have just those 6 artboards. So now it makes it easy to make a selection of just the ones that are visible. The idea here is that we're going to end up with a total of 6 different images, and these names that I started out with in here seemed pretty good at the time, but now, they're a little bit confusing. So why don't I go ahead and rename those something appropriate? I just came up with some nice simple names. We have Home 1, Home 2, and then Portfolio 1A and 1B, and Portfolio 2A and 2B. They're not confusing with any of the other names that are there, just in case I want to go back, turn all these on, and start working again later. So now I'm going to select each one of these simply by clicking on one and then holding down the command key and clicking again, skipping any of them that aren't turned on with the eyeball. So there I have all those non-contiguous files selected, and then I can either right click here and select to export them, or I can go up to layer and select export as. Now this will bring all of the layers in here, and we notice that when we click on any given layer that our size is exactly twice as big as the page. And since we're just sharing these either via email or via blogs in our case, there's no sense us cranking these out at this full size, at the high or the 2x resolution. So what we can do is come over here. Since we're dealing with multiple images, we can't just change the scale here since not all of these pages are the same size. So we'll do it here. This means that every one of them will get generated at 0.5x. It automatically is going to add this little suffix at the end, but that's no big deal. And then we select the format that we want. And in our case, either JPEG or PNG will work. PNG will be a little bit bigger, JPEG probably just a little bit smaller. And then we can do quality about 90% should be fine for what we're doing. Save a little bit of file size. Everything else is fine here. Just so you know what this is if you wanted to increase the canvas size, which is the actual size around the board, it's or around our image itself. In this case, that wouldn't be necessary, and then you can add metadata such as your copyright info if you were going to put these on the web or something like that. Colorspace, convert to Srgb. That's a good one to have checked, since everything we're doing is for web, and this is the Colorspace for web. And then we just come down here to export all. And this is going to take us into the folder structure that you're hopefully working from. And you might even want to click here and add a new folder and call it share or something like that, knowing that those are the images that you're going to share with your classmates or your client. And then the final step is to click export once you're inside the folder scenario, and then you can see it's chugging away making these images for us since we have 6 of them chosen, and it has to flatten all of them and do all that stuff. It may take a couple seconds, not too bad. There we are inside of the share folder. It did add that little @5x, which is no big deal, but now we know when we dig in there what we're looking at. We have the 2 homes and the 4 different portfolios. So let's go ahead and go through the process of sharing these. So we'll go to our blog, and again, my favorite way is just put in your URL /admin, log in, and it'll take you to your dashboard. Probably won't apply to you yet, but just I want to explain this to you. I actually have 2 different WordPress accounts. This one I have a bunch of different things under, and then I have the newer one that I made. So what it's telling me is that recently I logged in under one of the old ones. I must log out before I can log into the other system. So what I'll do is go to one of these and then just log out, and then I'll be able to log in to the other ones. And once at the dashboard, post, add new. We'll clearly label our blog so that our classmates can find us, and then clearly label the content, get to idea number 1, click on add media. It will appear a little bit different than the first time you did this because it took you right into the media library where you'll now have 1 or more items, and if you wanted to put this picture you just click on it and it would put the check mark next to it, but obviously that's not the case, so we have to switch tabs over here and go to upload files. Again, we can either drag and drop, or we can click here to select the files, navigate out to where we had Photoshop, save our file, and I found my overall web design folder that I'm working on, and then I made a folder inside of it called share, and there are all the items. So I'll click on those, click on open. Now everything is checked back into the media library. It automatically takes us, but let's uncheck what we don't need here. So we just want those 3, and then we'll click insert into post. Okay, so in my case I was lucky, 1, that they came in the right order, but they're jammed up against each other. So if yours came in the wrong order, you have 2 choices. You can just select these and delete, and then select all of them and delete, and then bring them in one at a time in the right order with the space between. Or if you're not scared of HTML, you can click here on visual, or I'm sorry, actually text is what I was after, and it takes you inside and you can see some of the HTML. Now it's not very friendly for letting you write your own HTML here on the blog, but you can figure out where one image starts and ends, and you could cut and paste them in the order that you want, and you can also just make sure you have a clear space in between them here. So I don't think this is pure HTML that we're looking at in here, because if you watch when I go back now, it does recognize that space. And if I go back into this mode, you can see that that space stays there in the quote code. So go back into visual, put my cursor down here, and I want to continue on here, idea number 2. Now the problem you're gonna, well, let me just show you, is when we go to add these images, and I'll just do one at a time here. Start with this. Well, let me just go back here and get my return in there right after the number 2. But we've got that problem white on white. So how are we going to fix that? People are going to get the idea, but if you wanted to give just like a subtle hint of the corner over here, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. But unfortunately, what you're going to have to do that is get rid of the images. We'll go back to add media. We'll select all of these and we will delete them. Navigate back to our folder that we generated the images in, and we'll select all the ones that have a 2 in them. And in fact, if we go to this mode here, that'll make that even easier to do. So we know we've got that one, and that one. So we'll command click on each of those, right click, open with, and we'll select Photoshop. Okay, and then in Photoshop, we're going to work on each one of these. We're just going to do a simple trick to it. We're going to add a little bit to the canvas and just paint in a little black like bracket in each corner. So the first step we have to do is double click to release this background layer. So you just double click and hit return or click on OK. Then you go up to image, canvas size, and we're going to select relative here. So it's just adding relatively to the size, so it'll start out with 0. We click here so that it's only going to add this way and this way in my case, because I only want to, in other words, what this will do is this is your image and it's telling you where it's going to add. If I clicked in the middle, it would add all the way around it. I don't need anything on the far left side. So I'm going to change this to pixels just so I can go real fine and just add 1 pixel to the width, and then 2 pixels to the height, 1 to the top, 1 to the bottom. I click OK, and now I have this little bit of transparency around here that you can barely see. I'm going to go over to the layers. I'm going to create a new layer. Oops, I created a new group there. Create a new layer by clicking this icon right here. Drag that down to the bottom. I'm going to make sure that I have black selected as my ink color. Then I'm going to grab the brush, and then I'm just going to, you can use this drop down here to select the brush size and the hardness. I actually want a very soft, I'll go 0 hardness on the brush size, about 30 pixels is fine, just enough so that I can get in here and click and drag, and if I really zoom in there we can see what's happening here. Go back to the brush, click, drag, and then last step, or last 2 steps maybe I need to do, is go back over here, flatten the image. Since I know I can go back to that other file at any time and make another one of these, I'm just going to save right over the top of this one. So I'll say save. Here's an inconsistency in Photoshop. Sometimes the quality is between 1 and 9, and in this menu it's between 1 and 12. But as long as we stick about 10, we should be fine there. Click OK, and then we'll just do that same step to the other images. By the way, something that'll probably be a big help to you as you're doing this would be to click over here on the background color, right click, and select maybe a lighter color so that you can actually see that you made your items there. Okay, so there's the first one. I'll just put my cursor here at the end, do a return, add media, grab the next one, insert into post, hit the return key, add media, grab the last one, insert into post, and there we go. And keep in mind we could have used the captions if that would help us out, having a little bit of information underneath them. And I think that little touch that we did there made it easier for people to figure out where one image starts and another stops. Maybe putting a little bit more space in between them just with simply a return helps a little bit too. And now we're just at the point where we're going to wait and see what our classmates have to say about our work.